That's a great point. When you look at the tendencies, we brought up kickers, and as an old soccer guy, I love kickers. Percentages of the makes of the kickers has gone up exponentially in the last 20 years, to the point now where a miss becomes a rarity. And forget the extra
From
point.
within 40,
Within 40, absolutely. I mean, almost 95% they're making within 40, right? But they've taken out a very important part of the game, and I'd love to hear your opinion as I'm trying to get to the competition committee with this idea as a soccer guy. I want to bring back the play. The kickoff has to become more of a factor in the game again, and they're looking for ways to do it safely.
Right.
So my idea, call me crazy if you'd like, it's okay, is that back end zone becomes a goal like soccer.
Right.
You have to defend that because kickers now are kicking the ball through the end zone with ease, whether they're in the dome or not. You also see kickers sticking it through the uprights. They're not doing it every play and every kickoff, but they can kick the ball from their own 35 through the uprights, which is a pretty impressive kick. I want to put points on that. I want to put points on kicking it through and making it a live ball, still a live ball, and
you drink Labatt's, don't you?
Vodka, actually, if you really want to know, maybe too much of it. I want to bring that back. You don't think that's a good idea, do you? Are you a traditionalist?
Ain't nobody doing that, man.
Are you?
I'm a traditionalist. I want the kickoff from the 30. Okay, that's my traditionalist.
Thank you.
So bring it back. So you do want to, but then again, you have that injury factor again.
I don't think the injuries have risen that much.
No.
Have to decrease more on the kickoffs they have.
I mean, I don't have numbers on it, but.
So what would you do to me? You just say.
I think there would be other ways to do it.
Another 5 yards.
I think there would be other ways to do it. Oh my God, the touchbacks are ridiculous now. There's so
That's
many
my point. It's a boring play. It's a great time to get away from the game and go do something because they got a 2-minute break before.
But the exciting thing isn't adding a point or two.
After.
The exciting thing are big returns. Devin Hester is the exciting thing. No one wants the Rouge. Sorry.
See,
they want more. They want more Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, I understand, but I just
they want Darren Sproles.
They won't have any ties. They won't have any more ties.
But think about this: if he moved it to the 30, even if you increase kickoff returns by 10%, and particularly as poor as some of these special teams are, you get big returns.
I want the return back.
Why are we so scared of ties?
I'm not.
Why are we so scared of ties?
Don't be scared of ties.
We're Americans.
No, man. If you got ties, then you don't have to play that goofy game where you're like, well, if Cincinnati went 3-1 against common opponents and Pittsburgh went 2-2 against,
then the tie is going to be a key factor.
Tie takes care of it all for you.
Right.
And as a soccer guy, I should appreciate ties.
Tie gives us the possibility of having a team win the NFC South at 5-10-1.
Oh my goodness! By the way, what a joke that is, huh? That you could actually have. Wait, Tampa Bay is 2 games out of first place and they're 2-8, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but think of this. Think of this. Now add this to your theory. Just what you just mentioned, Aaron Schatz. If I look at the game in the way that my partner looked at the game, you could do indoor football. We put screens across the back of the end zone, bounce off the screen, and you still have to return the ball. Kick it off further, and then you will get returns. Because what's going to happen is if that person plays that ball off the screen perfectly, I mean, remember you have Cody Jones and these people returning 108-yard kicks.
I also want to value kickers like Justin Tucker and Stephen Gostkowski who can really boom that thing.
Yes.
I just don't want to make it so everybody can boom that thing.
So
I just want it back
at the
30 like
uprights?
it was before.
Can we give them a point or two if they get it through the uprights? You don't like that?
I don't like it. Sorry.
It ends the game.
I don't like it.
All right.
I kind of do. I think it's a little crazy, but, you know.
It may not be exactly like that, but there's got to be a way to get that play back. And I love kickoff returns. So if we go back to the 30 or the 25 or the 20, they're just so afraid of the concussion factor in returns that they.
No, they're afraid of the fact that
the lawsuits
teams are that bad.
No,
that
it's
you
about
can't
concussions.
defend
I know it is.
I know it is. Yeah, they'll say that.
Did you read League of Denial, that book?
I haven't read it, no.
You have got to read that book.
Yeah.
I have never read a sports book as well written as this, with as good a story that was true.
Okay, but you didn't give me a chance to finish.
Of course.
Coaches are worried about the special teams factor.
Yeah.
The league has to worry about, as he mentioned, the concussion factor.
Right.
You have to worry about guys now traveling. If you're at the 30, you're getting by the time you get down there around the 20 at full speed, you're going to get people hurt.
I'm actually not a big fan of the idea of huge major changes to the game. I think the game works really well.
Well, you're a traditionalist.
And I think
get that.
It's
the most popular game.
Coaches have shown that the creativity to change what they do in the game, despite the rules staying relatively consistent, is really dramatic. So I don't think you need to make wholesale big changes. There are a few that I would make if I was running things.
Make one.
Well, first of all,
Commissioner for the day.
I
Always
would
a
get
fun
rid
thing.
of all illegal celebration penalties.
Let them
Unless
do anything they want out there.
Back in the no fun
Hold
league?
on, I want to hear this. Go ahead.
unless you break the goalpost. And
Okay, if you break the goalpost, then that's an issue.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
change defensive pass interference to be half the length,
Not 15 yards like the NCAA?
not 15 yards like the NCAA,
Okay.
but either half the length of the pass or
Okay.
half the distance to the goal once you get past like the 20.
right.
Because I don't think that a DPI on a deep pass should be an automatic like get the ball at the one type of thing,
Right.
but it also can't be 15 yards because then they'll do it on every
They'll
deep
do it on
play.
every play.
Right, right. I get
So you
that
got to have
part.
something kind of in
Yeah.
between.
Okay, so that is in between. I like that. You're going to send that to the
Unfortunately, you're
competition
requiring the officials to do math when you start talking about half the distance. You don't want that.
We'll give them
You
computers.
start getting things like
We'll get little hand computers.
You start getting things you occasionally get like face mask penalties that are walked off for 17 yards.
Right.
You don't,
You'd be going, what is this? How did
Five
they do
downs?
It's actually
Aren't there
in the-
5 downs? 5 downs?
you think it's bad? You know, we have a project where we do old play-by-play. We're trying to do our stats for old play-by-play. We've transcribed all the way back to 1989,
that's-
and we've got
wow.
86 and 86 to 88 almost ready to go for me to start bringing down. And you get back that far, and there are like math mistakes. Like we found plays where it says first and 10 yards, second and 0.
What the hell kind of math is that?
Huh?
Yeah,
Second and
not,
0.
not possible.
No,
Right.
guess not. Unless it's a typo.
My guess is that that's what in modern times we would think of as second and inches.
Second and inches, yeah.
Which means that first run in modern times would be
Like
9
9
yards.
plus yards,
But in all-time totals for guys like Walter Payton and stuff, that's counted as 10. It's counted differently than it would
They
be
round
counted down.
up.
Yeah. And the guy in Oakland in the first couple of years after the Raiders moved to Oakland literally could not count to 10. We've had to like make up yardage because you'd have a 3-yard run and a 6-yard run and a
To
first down.
make up yardage.
We're like, do we give an extra yard to the 3 or the 6? I don't know.
What is your relationship with the National Football League?
I have a really good relationship with the guy who does the play-by-play, actually, who's in charge of the play-by-play database. We correct probably 300 to 400 play-by-play every year.
300 to 400?
Yeah, because of the game charting project that we have, where we have people independently charting games separate from the play-by-play.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of plays that are incorrectly marked shotgun or not shotgun, where the number of passing yards versus yards after the catch is mismarked, penalties attributed to the wrong player, wrong directions are listed, scrambles that aren't listed as scrambles, things like that. Occasionally runs not attributed to the right running back. But I've never spoken to any of the big wigs. I mean, I've never met Goodell. Greg Aiello from PR knows who I am.
Greg Aiello, I would think
Yeah.
you would absolutely know, the PR guy. What would you like to see happen in football with your statistics, with the research that you're finding out?
I mean, I wish that there's a couple of levels of this, right? So there's from a team level and from a media level.
Okay.
On a team level, listen, all of us stat people have been beating the drum for more aggressiveness on fourth down for a dozen years now, and if they're not going to listen to us, they're never going to. I mean, if they haven't already, then the research is all out there. They need to be more aggressive on fourth down. It kills me that Belichick is less aggressive now than he used to be. The biggest thing that teams could do to make things better would be to be more aggressive on fourth down.
Even 4th and 1 from your 30?
Yeah, I understand the numbers said actually that Belichick made the right decision, but it's close. But what's really concerning is things like 4th and 1 from the opposing 45.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no reason to argue about 4th and 1 from your own 28.
Yep.
When we could 4th and 2 from your own 28. When we can argue about all these guys who are. Did John Fox punted from the opposing 37 or something this week?
Yeah, well, that tells you something.
His quarterback is Peyton Manning, for crying out loud. What are you doing, man? Like,
That's
hello?
crazy, isn't it?
So that's, but a lot of the other things that we talk about, a lot of teams have understood. from the beginning of when I started doing this, I was saying running backs are overrated. You need to have running back committees. They break down easily. Offensive line is more important than the running back for the running game.
Absolutely.
And we're absolutely seeing that in the drop of running backs in the draft, in smaller running back contracts. The teams understand that now.
Look at Jonas Gray. He was a practice. He was a guy signed off the street
Yes.
and for 3 years.
Jonas Gray is Garrett Blunt, who is Ben Jarvis Green Ellis,
Right.
Yep.
who is, these guys are all. And by the way, Olandis Gary is Selvin Young, who is Tatum Bell, who is Reuben Drones, who is, the Patriots aren't the only team that's done this.
No, I get it, and that's smart. The Patriots put a money asset on each position. This is
Right.
what I see, and talent.
Yes.
He and I go back and forth on this a lot of times, especially when it came to Logan Mankins earlier this year.
Right.
They just saw diminishing return on their investment of the asset that they've identified as Logan Mankins.
Right, and they saw guard as a position where it is easier to get value from a lower round draft pick than pass rusher. Ninkovich aside. Ninkovich is an amazing story.
Yeah.
Because you're like, how did they not realize they should use him as something other than a long snapper when he was in New Orleans? But the fact is that for the most part, there are certain positions where the value almost always comes from top draft picks, and other positions where you can really go bargain bin shopping. So you want to use your top draft picks and your big free agent contracts on cornerbacks, pass rushers, left tackle,
Oh, yes.
wide receivers,
Yep.
and then when they are transcendent, tight ends and safeties, middle linebacker sometimes, and then, of course, quarterback.
Quarterback. Yep.
How much of an aberration is Rob Gronkowski? He and I
In
argue
my
about
opinion, when healthy,
Yes.
he is the greatest tight end of all time at his peak.
this. Yeah. Right, I'm with you on that.
Now, if he could stay healthy for 12 more years, he can be Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck, Rob.
Yeah,
Right,
we're talking
I know.
about we're talking about
How to defend him.
elite tight ends. Now, my brain takes me back to the John Mackeys.
Yep.
Kellen
Takes
Winslow.
me back to the Kellen Winslows,
Yep.
Mike Ditka's.
I'm not even sure I put
guys-
Winslow in my top 5.
Exactly.
Really? Even after that
no,
one
because
game?
no, because he's slotted. He's
Yeah.
slotted a lot of times.
Mackey,
He moved out.
Mackey,
Yep.
Ditka,
Yep.
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. Yeah, these guys.
Gates and
tight end.
Gronkowski.
Yeah, Gates. Yep. See, these are the prime guys he's talking about
Yep.
now. I'm talking about. I might throw before I throw the name you want to throw out. I throw Ozzie Newsome in there
Yeah,
before
Newsome,
I throw
yeah,
those
there's
guys.
Newsome too,
in
and
there,
there's
yeah.
Shannon
and
Sharp.
Shannon Sharp. Yep. Who was really a split tight end because he
Right.
flanked
See, the
out
thing
too.
is, it's like you've got your dual guys and you've got your slotty type guys. So Gonzalez, Gates, Jimmy Graham now. Winslow was really the first of those guys who was much more of a slotty type guy. Whereas your classics, but also Gronk, Jason Witten,
Yes.
Heath Miller.
Yep.
Are more of a, they can do the inline blocking thing better. But Gates and Gonzalez were always a little bit underrated as blockers. Graham can't really block very well.
No.
But
I'm reading your site. I spent some time on your site, and one of the things that people ask about, and you welcome feedback from your readers and users. By the way, how many do we have on a regular basis? Do you?
I don't even remember this.
It's a lot.
I have 31,000 Twitter followers. so
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you taking
extrapolate.
it. And we're in your hood, so I appreciate that. And that's really where I'm going
Came
with this
down the
question.
street. It's really
great.
fun.
Well, thank you. And this is where I'm going with this. One of the things was, is there a New England bias, or is it the fact that New England is the sports capital of the world in America over the last 15 years?
Well, there is a New England bias in me when I'm a fan.
Yep.
So, like, my Twitter feed has a New England bias.
Okay.
Okay.
We're really honest. From the time I started, I was going to be like, I'm not going to be able to pretend I don't root for my team. I started
Right.
this because I
Right.
root for my team.
This is what I talked to him about.
Now, the difference is that I have a bunch of writers now who root for other teams. So we actually have a page on our site where we list what our biases are, so at least you can accuse us correctly.
Right.
Because I had a guy named Ned Macy who used to write for me.
Yeah.
He grew up in Indianapolis, and people would accuse him of Patriots bias because I'm from here. And it was like he grew up in Indianapolis and he lived in Detroit. What Patriots bias were, I don't know, man. So, I mean,
and when you win, you do
when
earn.
it comes to analysis, I analyze objectively. New England is not the #1 team in our ratings right
Thank
now.
you.
Despite the fact that
Thank you.
subjectively, I
I
think
told
we
you,
all feel they're the best team in the league.
And I think with my heart. And I talk with my heart.
Who
too.
But my,
is,
but
Aaron?
my
Who
ratings,
do you
but
think?
my
So
ratings,
who's your power
my
rating?
ratings my ratings still don't have them #1. I'm not going to change my ratings for what my
Heart says.
fandom
Right,
says.
that's what I say.
And
Yep,
neither
I
are
get
my
it.
guys from Pittsburgh or my guys
Right.
from Seattle or my college guys who live in South Bend, Columbia, Missouri, and Athens, Georgia. So
who are
the
the
#1 team in our numbers is Denver. And this ties
Still.
back to what I was saying about, although they have lost an amazing. Okay, 3 weeks ago, Denver was the 6th best team we had ever tracked through 25 weeks.
Okay.
A 6th best team through whatever 8 weeks over
Right.
25 years.
Okay.
Now they are not.
Yeah, I guess not.
But they're still #1 because, like I said, we look at a much larger period of time. We don't start discounting games until 8 weeks or 9 weeks later. So our look at the Patriots still considers the blowout with the Chiefs.
Yep.
It still considers the Raiders game somewhat. It
Yep.
still considers the Jets game that was close. The Denver rating still considers a lot of their games.
What about the Minnesota game? Because that was close
The
for a while,
Minnesota
too.
game,
Yep,
well,
that
they
was
have
close for a while.
they have a really good rating.
But how do
Yeah.
you?
But,
how-
in other words,
Go
they've
ahead.
gotten stronger as the years gone along. As our ratings go along, they'll move up. They're in 5th right now, but everybody's really packed from below the Broncos. And the Broncos will fall, but I think you have to look at a longer term of how these teams are. The other thing you have to look at is home and away. Obviously, when the Broncos have struggled, it's been on the road. If they manage to be at home in the playoffs, they'll be at home. They kind of blew that this week.
Yes,
But,
they did. So how do you account for a team in team's improvement from the 4th week of the season to the 10th week of the season?
Well, I mean, as time goes on, we have a rating we call weighted, where we do start to discount earlier games. And then the other thing you use is just common sense, right? Stats always have to be interpreted through the lens of your common sense. And so we do that too. That's why, as I say, that's why our site is not just tables of numbers. It has words.
Yes.
Because the words explain why the numbers might be that way.
Yep.
So, like, we know, for example, that, Seattle is still something like 6th or 7th in our ratings. But we also know they just lost their center. And we know they lost their defensive tackle 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Maybank.
Right? So that's not reflected in our numbers. But we know that when we talk about the games going forward. We know that the offensive line has been a lot better since week 5 or 6. We know that Julius Thomas got an ankle injury. We don't know what his situation is. We know the Hillman is out. So we talk about teams. We know
Monty
the
Bell's
injuries.
out.
We know, and we also know certain things that are not. For example, our numbers are really down on Arizona. Shockingly, they're like 15th.
That's
Okay.
amazing. That's actually not
Why?
amazing.
Why,
to me.
Aaron?
They've had
Why?
a lot of wins
Why?
where they've gotten the bounces on fumbles.
Okay.
They've had good play at just the right time.
Yeah.
And close wins, and then they got killed by Denver, so that drops
Yeah.
their
Yes, they
rating,
did.
right? But I think that some of the difference, between their rating and their wins and losses is coaching. Now, I can't tell you what it is, because as I often say, intangibles are called intangibles because they are not tangible. It means you can't measure them. But it doesn't mean they don't exist.
Right.
All right. So I
Exactly.
think some of that is coaching, but I'm not going to try to pretend to put that in the numbers. The numbers say Arizona is not as good as their record. They remind me a lot, actually, of, I was just writing about this today. The 2003 Carolina Panthers were another team
That they just-
that
right.
they won a lot of games. Now, they
Late.
won more games because of close wins,
Yep.
whereas Arizona's won more because of, like, lucky bounces. But they had a better record than their play, and then suddenly Carolina got super hot at the end of the season
Right.
and actually
They did.
played up to their record
Yep.
through the Super Bowl, which they almost won. The same thing might happen to Arizona. By the way, the
Question.
comparison works where the Seahawks are actually the 2003 Tampa Bay Bucks at the same time.
Think
Wow.
about this, though. And
I'm going to
just
find out who else
update
is.
you-
Wait, he's got #1 Denver. I'd like to hear the few.
We'll
other-
get there. Just to update the people that are watching, this is Aaron Schatz. He is the creator of Football Outsiders. We want to keep our informed in case they tune in and they want to know who is this guy and what does he do. Aaron, how much of this comes from eye experience, which I have over 50 years of watching this game, touch and feel, or feel inside of you, like you just mentioned to
Right.
me? I got to
Well,
use
not a
common
lot of
sense
touch and
sometimes.
feel. I
No,
mean-
but I'm just saying it's still a feel. There
Right.
has to be a feel for this stuff to what you do.
Yeah, but I don't use a lot. I mean, listen, what I often say is I would love to see someone like me on pregame shows, but that doesn't invalidate having ex-athletes because you need to give you that feel. You need to
Okay.
have ex-coaches to give you that feel.
Got it.
They got to tell you what it's like in that locker room. They got to tell you how it feels to lose. They got to tell you how it feels to have the coach ride you. I can't do that stuff. But I definitely use my eyes, scouting, seeing what players are doing, and combine that with the stats. And also we create stats off of scouting. So we watch games, we create stats, looking for blown blocks, looking for defensive coverage. You know, I mean, God, you do not want to measure cornerbacks by tackles.
Oh,
It's
Lord,
awfully
no.
stupid. So
Yes.
what we do is we count run tackles and pass tackles separately, right? Because run tackles you do want to count because that shows that a guy
Can tackle.
can tackle.
That's
although
number one.
A guy
And
in a
you can
cover
come
two,
stop a run,
guy in a cover two
cover
scheme
two,
will have
right.
more run tackles because he's playing closer to the line. But you want to mark them by their defensive coverage. So we track defensive coverage with charting. So like when you don't throw at Rivas or you don't throw at Sherman, we're tracking them.
Gotcha.
So it's a combination of a lot of things. You want to use, it's like I said, it's like holistic analysis. You want to use all
Why
anyway.
won't the networks do it, Aaron? Why won't the networks come to a guy like you and say, Aaron, listen, we'd like you to come on. And just
don't
break
know,
down
network.
games. No, I'm just saying from a statistical analysis,
ESPN
break down
does.
break down what the fan can possibly see. Because to me, that's better than some dumbass person sitting up there trying to make a prediction. Well, I believe they're going to win. I mean, whenever I hear an announcer say that, you're not God. You don't know whether they're going to win or lose.
I mean, I appreciate the ex-athlete point of view. One of the things I've said is
Not predicting,
I
I don't.
apologize to my ESPN colleagues, but there's no need for Shannon Sharp. Sorry, not Shannon Sharp. Chris Carter
Chris
and
Carter.
Keyshawn Johnson. They come from exactly the same perspective on everything.
Right.
I mean, that's nothing against either of them, but
Right.
how many Hall of Fame wide receivers do you need? I mean, Keyshawn's not in the Hall of Fame, but he was very good. I would love to do. I did a show for ESPN for 1 year called Numbers Never Lie. And unfortunately, the show kind of really changed its formatting after I left, in part because they had a hard time finding a version of me for other sports. That's
Nice to
not
be
about
unique.
me being on. That's
Nice
not
to
about
be unique.
Yeah, well, it's not just that I'm good on TV. It's that they needed a version of me who could come to Bristol.
Bless you.
I'm
right.
close to Bristol.
I get you, right.
Basketball and baseball versions of me were
Okay.
not close to Bristol, so I'm not pumping
Yes,
my
they
own
were.
ego.
Yes,
I'm
they
only
were.
pumping my own geography. Kevin Pelton is in Seattle. They couldn't bring him to Bristol.
That's too. That's
Okay,
not costing
so-
it. Well, they could send him to L.A. now and hook him up into that studio.
I would love to do TV. It is one of my hopes. I think that it would be very difficult to bring up a lot of what we do during broadcasts, with the exception of the guys who do win expectancy analysis, which is not one of my fortes, but Brian Burke from Advanced Football Analytics does this, and ESPN Stats and Information Group does this. Like, you know, if the team goes for it here versus kicking a field goal, what's the percentage chance of winning? How does that change? I think to show those numbers on the screen when coaches make big decisions would be a big boost. The kind of team and player analysis that I do, I think would fit a lot better on pregame shows and
half,
studio shows during the week, halftime,
and
postgame.
postgame.
Yeah. I would love to see me and other folks like me doing shows like that in 5 or 10 years. I think it would be great, and there's really no reason to get rid of the ex-athletes and the ex-coaches. You can just add a stat guy alongside them. I would love to see it happen.
Now, have you ever done stats at a game? Did you ever
I
sit in
cover
the booth?
games,
Right.
but I don't do stats during a game.
Okay.
When I cover games, when I'm in Gillette and occasionally elsewhere, I'm usually tweeting about sort of from the scouting perspective what I see
Right,
on the
what you
field.
see on
Although
the field.
occasionally I have tracked. For example, the Rams were nice enough to bring me in for a Monday night game earlier this year. And I decided that I wanted to know why their pass rush wasn't getting home. So I literally watched every single snap of Quinn the entire game from the press box and marked down what he was doing and then wrote about it afterwards.
Wow, that's very cool.
So I'll do stuff like that occasionally, which I guess is statistics in some way, but it's not what I'm known for particularly.
And with the fantasy world,
Obviously, that's a big audience
has
for what
played
we
a
do.
huge role.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
guessing
not,
in your
it's
growth.
not the
I think it's
thrust
growing.
of what we do,
Right.
but it's sort of a nice added bonus that
Yeah.
our stuff becomes useful for that because it helps me make a living,
What about the gambling side of things?
which is totally legal in Nevada and Canada
That's right.
and the United Kingdom.
And it should be here. It should be.
For our viewers in the
opinion.
United Kingdom,
Your opinion.
this is totally legal.
Your
That's
opinion.
right.
Yes,
Your opinion.
we
My
sell,
opinion, yes.
We sell
Yes.
premium picks as part of our premium package. Totally legal in the United Kingdom and Nevada. Our picks are having a horrible year this year. I feel like an
Interesting.
idiot.
That's interesting.
But we have hit like 53% over a 7-year period. We're just having a really bad year this year.
But that's
Interesting.
53%, and you still have a 47% margin on the other end.
Right, that's against
where
the
you're
spread.
going to be wrong.
Right.
Well, the spread is designed to
spread.
have everybody hit
Right.
50-50
Yes.
Right.
And you're at 53.
over a 7-year period. Or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. Hey,
All right, 1 to
Aaron,
5. We have to get
one
there.
through
We
five.
have to get there.
Oh, wait.
I
He's got
brought it with
love
me
it. Thank
so
you.
that I would
He
remember
came
exactly-
prepared.
That's good. I like that.
He
I brought it
came
with me so I would
prepared.
remember exactly what
Thank
was in
you
the
for
numbers,
coming
okay?
prepared.
All right. First is 1 to 5, including last night. Denver's number 1, Green
Still.
Bay 2, Baltimore 3, Miami 4,
Whoa.
Patriots 5, Kansas City 6, and then there's a gap. Then Seattle, Philly, Detroit, Pittsburgh,
That's interesting.
San Francisco.
Well, I don't think the Patriots could go into Green Bay and win in a few weeks anyway.
I mean, listen, you
With or
asked me
without the-
subjectively. I
Yeah.
think, look, I think that this overrates the Kansas City Patriots game, which means Kansas City should be a slightly lower than this, and the Patriots slightly higher. And the Ravens have really eaten up the NFC South teams. Now, normally, the best signifier of a good team is actually not their ability to win close games. It's their ability to blow out
people.
opponents.
Yep.
Now, the best
Home or
indicator,
away.
the best indicator is the ability to blow out good teams, the
Yep.
way Green Bay and the Patriots just did.
Yep.
But even your ability to blow out bad teams. That being said, there's so much difference this year between the Ravens' performance against the NFC South and everyone else that I think we might have them a little high on that. Miami has been shockingly good. I do not know where this has come from. It is the defense. Defense was not as good last year. They're playing basically without their starting linebackers at all from the beginning of the year. And Deion Jordan has been a huge disappointment. You take a guy 3rd overall as a defensive player, and 2 years later, he should be playing a big role, and
yep.
Jordan is not. But they got
But he's
Olivier
off. He's off the
Vernon
charts. Yep.
has kind of played that role that Jordan was supposed to, and their secondary has been awesome, and the scheme has worked. I have a hard time buying them because I have a hard time seeing Tannehill as any better than average, but they have played really well. Like that first week game seemed crazy at the time, but in retrospect, the idea of the Patriots going to Miami and losing makes total sense. The good news is the second game is here.
Right.
Right.
And they don't ever do well.
And that's
in
one of the reasons the
Foxborough.
Patriots are, by far at this point, the leading number one. They get the number 1 seed in like 30% of our simulations.
Okay.
They get a bye in like 60% of our simulations. They win the division at this point like 90% because they've got the 2-game lead, and they get Miami here.
Right. Hey, look, their schedule has actually worked
And
out
Buffalo
beautifully.
Buffalo here, too.
Right.
Now, what happens? What happens if Miami comes here and beats them?
Oh, boy.
Then, Aaron, you sit back. Okay, now we got to reassess all this because each week you're reassessing. Correct?
That's correct.
So let's say Miami comes here and they continue to play over their heads because we're
Right.
saying they're playing
Now they
over their
need
heads.
one more win.
Right.
But they
Okay.
have the tiebreaker.
Right. But let's say they play over their heads, and let's say Buffalo comes in here and gives them a game. Because
Yeah.
remember, up in Buffalo, that
That's
was a
right.
close
So
game.
it's like
Right.
we reconsider. We do not now think Denver is as good as we thought they were a week
No.
ago.
Right.
We do not now think Philadelphia is as good as we thought they were
No.
a week ago.
Arizona.
Okay. We now think Arizona is a little better maybe than we thought they were a week ago because we have a little bit more faith in Stanton. We and as much as my numbers don't like Arizona, their 2 best games of the year have been Week 9 and Week 11. So have the Patriots.
Right. Interesting.
We like Green Bay more than we did a week ago, right?
Okay, hold there.
So you have to reconsider every week.
Okay.
How you feel
That's-
about teams.
and that's how
Okay.
the NFL looks at it.
I want to hit you with this. We're talking about the goal line stand. Cardinals versus the 49ers. The question of whether he was in Kaepernick, whether he was out, remember?
Wait.
And they wind up winning the game at the end.
I'm trying to have a terrible memory for specific plays.
Well, this is
when,
in my head.
When
But I'm
was
just
the
I'm-
Cardinals 49ers?
I'm just saying the Cardinals played the 49ers. It was like 13-10 or something like that, and they went for it on 4th and goal or whatever,
right, right,
and
right.
they didn't get there. See, I still have a pretty decent memory that I remember these things, and I'm going, okay. And there was a big question of videotape replay. Remember, they dove in the end zone. They had to show it from like 65 different angles to
Yep.
see. He did not get into the end zone.
Or at least there was no evidence.
Evidence.
to overturn it.
overturn it. Not enough
I knew you were going
There's
to.
always going to be
visual
the
evidence.
look. There's always going to be the human. We crack on referees a lot, and some of them are terrible, like Boger and Triplett. But the fact is they are only human, and to do this job with men moving that fast is very difficult.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the rule book doesn't make it easy on them
No, it
by
doesn't.
making by making it so that like everything could possibly be holding, and you don't know when you're supposed to call it. Or, you know, I mean,
What about this one?
so you do
can't-
have to understand there's going to be human error.
Okay, what about this one?
I like that.
Chris Collinsworth came up with this last night. And I watched Chris. He's a pretty good guy. He's a pretty smart
He is
guy.
the best color commentator.
Okay.
No question about
Okay.
it.
All
No
right.
one else is close since Jaws stopped
Great.
doing
Well, they haven't seen a lot of other people, but that's okay. For the guy that's there, he's the best. But he made a point last night that was very good. He's a wide receiver. He said we should move the bump rule, or we should move the 5-yard zone
To 10.
back to 10 yards.
Yeah, I heard
And when
him
I
say
thought
that
about
too.
it, I said, wait a minute, Chris, that's a pretty darn good idea because you can't.
Oh, do
put-
we need more offense? Is that what it is?
No,
We don't
no,
have
no,
enough
no. Of
offense
course,
right
that's
now?
what he's
Is that
saying.
going
I'm
on?
saying, and that's why I went there and I said, that's a pretty good idea. I said, well, Lord knows they can't play anybody now. If you give them 10 yards, could you imagine how deep the field has to be then just to be able to defend people?
And guys can go over the middle all they want.
All they want.
For health reasons, which I understand, but we have to understand how that's changed the game. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that idea.
Okay.
I mean, you can't touch them for 10 yards. First of all, Brandon Browner would have to retire.
He'd have to retire 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
He'd have to retire. Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. Actually, I think I may be misinterpreting. Was he saying you should be able to make contact for 10 yards?
Yes.
No, you
No.
should be able to make contact for 10 yards.
Yeah.
The
Instead of
first 10
5?
yards.
Right.
Instead
okay.
of 5.
Yeah, that's
no,
what he's
actually,
saying.
I would.
Then you got to let him
Okay,
go.
same.
I was mistaken. I
Yeah,
reversed it in
that's
my
what I
mind.
Okay.
I would buy that, and actually, Brandon Browner would not retire. Brandon Browner would actually have fewer penalties if that was the rule.
That's
Exactly.
right.
I think that might help to even out
Right.
the effects of letting guys go in the middle of the field.
Yep.
It would increase the value of Gronk and Graham and
Because
guys
Aaron
like that
Schatz,
more. But
it's all loaded to the offense now.
Yes.
It's very hard to weigh any defensive unit
right
when you're talking
they slightly
about.
changed it this year with the hands to the face thing for offensive linemen, but
But that's not that's interior.
But I hate to tell you this. Listen, the fact is that for all we talk about rules, the biggest reason why offenses are so good right now is that never in the course of football history have offensive coaches been as far ahead of defensive coaches when it comes to creativity as they are now. And everything is cyclical. And eventually there's some genius out there at some Division II school who's going to come up with whatever is the equivalent of the 46 defense that solves the spread and the read option. But whoever that guy is, he hasn't come up with it yet. And so, you know, the kind of stuff that Chip Kelly does,
There'll be a defensive person to do that.
especially in college, but even in the NFL, offensive schemes, the amount of misdirection is so far ahead of defenses. That's the main reason.
Question, let's look at the field for a second. You move the hash marks. What if you move them back, Aaron?
It would be more like college.
But if you move them back, you can condense a lot of the stuff that's going on outside of those lines.
If you want the game to be more like college.
Yeah, but I'm talking
What
about from a
happens is
defensive point of view.
if you
Aaron.
move
I'm asking from a
if you move
defensive
the
point of
hash
view.
marks if you move the hash marks wider,
Right.
you create a bigger incentive for speed on the edge, right? That's the biggest reason why people always said option won't work in the NFL, right? The reason why option didn't work in the NFL until the arrival of the read option
Read option, yep.
was one, defensive ends faster
Right.
in the NFL than they are, so to leave them unblocked, you're going to kill yourself. But the main reason is because the whole speed around the end thing, when you have the hash marks farther away, you create more room for the speed around the end thing. Now, the read option doesn't require that same room, which is why that works in the NFL, where the pitch option
Pitch out. Yeah.
generally,
Pitch option's not gonna
doesn't.
work.
So if you move the hash marks out more, you'll just make the game more like college, although it would have the advantage of making things harder for kickers.
Well, we don't want that because I love my kickers.
Yeah, but they all hit everything now.
I know. Well, that's good. That's because of the specialization of sports. It's like it's like the closer in baseball.
No,
It-
because
and- yes.
because I don't want a game of just field goals, Jimmy.
I don't-
mean,
you're not getting
you get
games
over
with
the
just
50,
field goals.
You get over the 50, and okay, we get to the playoffs, and you're going to see some of this scoring cut down. Then you're going to see
To be honest,
where the field goal
even with here's the deal. Even
Right.
with field goals becoming more accurate, coaches still make mistake by going for field goals too often and not going for touchdowns.
fourth
and
down.
Thank you. That's
So
what I'm talking
that's
about.
not
Right,
the effect of
everybody's saying
kickers
that.
getting
Right.
better. That's just coaches being
Coaching.
dumb. That's like I said, that's the one thing I think coaches are smarter than people give them credit for compared to the way baseball managers were when Bill James got started. NFL coaches are better off, except, my God, on fourth down, they are so stupid. And the other is just the general basic idea of
I like the fourth down thing.
what Malcolm Gladwell calls the David versus Goliath theory. if you think you are going to lose the game, if you think you have the inferior team, you need to use Goliath. Use David's strategy.
Yep.
If you're the inferior team, you bring out more fakes. You go for it on fourth down more. You try onside kicks more often. You try to slow the game down with more defense because you figure that if there's fewer plays, the mistakes will play more of a role. The fewer plays there are, the bigger a role mistakes play, and you want mistakes to play. You want stuff that's going to be random to play as big a role as possible.
I'm saying
when you're the better team, you want to have regular plays. You want to not do crazy things. You want everything that's going to keep yourself in the in the driver's seat.
In control. Plus,
so coaches do not do enough of this kind of thing with the when you're Tampa Bay and you're playing
hey, they're only 2 games out of
whoever's not terrible. I'm trying to think not in a team in their own division. When you're Tampa Bay and you're playing Pittsburgh or Baltimore or whatever. I know they beat Pittsburgh, but you know what I mean.
I do. No, in fact,
none of us know how they beat Pittsburgh.
Everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, which is why you're getting the respect and have earned the respect.
And you want to know, and the fact is that the people who think most like me as coaches are generally the coaches that are the best regarded in a lot of ways. I mean, Belichick's less aggressive now than he used to be. But he's the most aggressive coaches of the last 25 years. If you look at the top 10, Sean Payton's in there, and also what I call the holy triumvirate of Bills. Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, Bill Cowher.
Yep.
That's 6 rings.
Yep.
They're not counting what they got, what Belichick got as a coordinator.
And I remember a couple of those calls that Bill Cowher made.
Cowher went for the onside kick in the field in the Super Bowl before Sean Payton.
Yes, he did.
He just didn't get it. He just didn't get it. He didn't have Hank Baskett on the other team. Didn't have Mr. Reality Star Playboy model on the other team to bobble the ball. So, can you tell I had a writer who lived in Philly for a while? So
yes,
I got the Hank Baskett thing.
Excuse me.
You got a great
from Philly.
No. Philly people don't like Hank Baskett because
I know
he
they
was
don't.
like a scrub.
I know
the show. And then he went to Indianapolis and dropped the ball in the Super Bowl. Chip Kelly, as aggressive as I'd like him to be, but Chip Kelly thinks more like me than any other coach in the NFL.
Interesting.
And he's very considered, cutting edge.
Yeah.
Now, listen, the fact is there's other aspects of coaching. I mean, you've got, Andy Reid is very conservative on fourth down, but when it comes to other schematic things, he's very good. Other guys are much better as, your Tony Dungy types, right? They're great motivators. Certainly not a talent of mine if I were to be in a locker room, and that's, of course, an important thing, too. That's why you have your Tony Dungy and your Lovie Smith.
Right. Well, it's an emotional game.
You say not a talented mind. What do you mean?
Not a talent of mine. I would not be able to stand up in front of 45 professional NFL players and somehow motivate them to care more than they already do.
Right.
Which I hope they do since this is their job.
Right.
But that's important. Carroll, of course, has that. That's why I always thought if Herm Edwards would just go to the NCAA, he'd be the best college coach in existence.
Oh, my goodness, he'd be good.
Can you imagine Herm Edwards sitting on every mama's couch, having pie, telling mama why her kid should be coming to
Michigan.
Herm Edwards University?
Michigan.
Oh,
just
my
pick
God.
Michigan.
Would
He
every
turned
mother
Michigan
in the
around.
country
He
not
turned Michigan
completely fall in
around
love with him?
in a heartbeat.
He missed his calling.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Mark Sanchez, what an enigma he is. I mean, yes,
to you,
no, or
do
you not like
Aaron
him?
Schatz, is he an enigma to you?
Yeah, that's really what I want to
break down the stat. Was he an enigma to you at all?
Someone famous. I'll end it with this, and then I'm going to wrap it up so I can go watch the Titans play awful. Zach Mettenberger show. Speaking of awful backup quarterbacks,
to go watch somebody play terrible. Go ahead.
Yeah,
it doesn't say much for you. Continue.
Yeah, Zach Mettenberger show. Well, maybe Jason McCourty could at least stop Roethlisberger from throwing for 6 touchdowns. Someone famous once said it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah,
so
I do.
Look, Mark Sanchez is what he is. He was I think he was overdrafted because he had no college experience.
Yep.
He'd hardly played when he came out of college. It's a terrible. You get really terrible luck with guys like that. The exceptions are guys who it turns out they did play because they played junior college. Right, Aaron Rodgers didn't play much, but he had played junior college.
He played.
Cam Newton had played junior college. Right? Okay.
Won national championship.
So he's overdrafted. Second, I don't know what's going on with the Jets. I don't know why their organization can't develop offense. I don't know if it's Rex or if it's the circus of the Jets or what. But that's been a terrible
General
place to be
manager's
drafted
under a
on
lot of
offense.
fire.
Yeah, but he wasn't even the general manager.
Wasn't
for
the
most
general
of the
manager?
time.
That came right.
But like you have to look at guys like Stephen Hill and go, okay, maybe Stephen Hill wasn't. Maybe it's not Stephen Hill. Maybe it's the Jets. So maybe it's not Geno Smith. Maybe it's not Mark Sanchez. Maybe it's the Jets. Okay. And the thing is, people thought that Sanchez was great because he was taking that team to the AFC Championship game because he was riding his defense.
Yep.
It's a team sport.
Right.
The quarterback
last
is
night.
the most important player on a team, but a quarterback is not half the team.
Right.
A quarterback is worth more than 1/45th of a team. He's worth more than your long snapper. He's worth more than your middle linebacker.
What's the fraction? What would
I
you
don't
put?
know, like
We all agree that it's the toughest
sixth?
position to play. A sixth?
Probably a fifth.
A sixth, fifth, a sixth?
Sixth,
You
the
said
fifth,
sixth?
yeah.
Sixth, a fifth.
I mean, that team was led to the playoffs by Darrell Revis, David
yep.
Harris, and was Sean Ellis still around, and John
Bart.
Abraham, and
Yep.
Bart Scott.
Bart
and
Scott.
Mark
Bill
was
Scott.
along for the ride, man. So that when he
They
all of a
look
sudden
good.
got
They-
terrible a couple years ago, I mean, he had a couple of good games in the playoffs, but
Yeah.
for the most part, he's along for the ride. So a couple years later, when he starts to look terrible, nothing changed. And now,
So it is
nothing's
what it is.
changed
So
except
it
that
is
he's
what
in
it
an
is.
offense that's built to make things easier on the quarterback, which is how Nick Foles has one of the most amazing second
Nick
years of all
Foles,
time last
yes,
year because
yes.
that offense is built to make a quarterback look good.
Yep.
And eventually, Chip's going to get his guy, even if you have to trade his firstborn son to the Raiders to move up to get Marcus Mariota. Then we're really going to see what that
Lord.
offense can
Oh
do.
my gosh. If he gets him.
But Mark Sanchez is what he is, which is he's a backup quarterback.
Right.
He's
Has to be.
He's no more. He's no less. And the same goes for Drew Stanton, and the same goes for Josh McCown. Lord knows what Tampa was thinking there. I mean, listen, there's exceptions. We don't know what Ryan Mallett could be. We still don't know.
Say you had
Right?
the, you
But
had
for
the
most of
backup
these
poll.
guys, we know who they are. I mean, I even think with Hoyer, we know who he is. I think if Cleveland is smart, they'll let him go elsewhere.
Okay.
Let's
Really?
find out what
And why?
Manziel can do.
I find out what Manziel. Okay.
Because Hoyer
Now,
is not. He's
not going to be the guy to get
Yeah.
you there. Now, you mentioned Mallett, which is a very good, and that's a guy that we knew coming in.
Yes.
What his reputation was in college.
Yep.
We knew all the baggage
busted
that
the
he brought with.
reputation.
Right.
Yep.
He destroyed his own draft status. He killed himself and threw him all the way down there. But he gets a chance to sit behind Brady. He gets
Yep.
a chance to be in this system. He gets a chance to really watch and learn. Now, how good can he be? Because yesterday he steps up. He plays well enough yesterday.
I have no idea because it's like a
Exactly.
scouting thing, man. Because, I mean,
You don't know yet.
some
right?
of those long passes are a little bit ducks, as strong as his arm is, and he's got no pocket. I mean, because sacks are counted as
Yeah.
rushing yards in college. But but listen, I'll tell you, man, the lesson of Ryan Mallett is that men are not emotionally formed at the age of 20.
That's
right.
true.
Okay, and you know what? That may end up being a lesson with Johnny Manziel.
Right.
I think it's been a lesson with Cam Newton. Man, you know, for all the Cam Newton's struggling right now because his teammates were grabbed off the Charlotte High School roster for
Yes.
crying out loud, man. Brendan Burson, you know, where'd that guy come from?
I mean,
Okay,
you
but
let
it's not because
Steve
he's
Smith
immature,
go.
right? I mean, he's
You let
immature.
Lapel-
Again, yeah.
He's killing himself.
Wait a
He
minute,
could
I want to
get
hear
better.
this because this is
All
important.
right.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
James
Because
Winston
he's the
could get his act
20-year-old
together.
guy
Yes, he could get his
that
act
could
together.
possibly get his act together,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Now, where does he? He's going to fall all the way in the draft. I don't see it because I see somebody that may be as smart as you to sit back and say, "Wait
Again,
a minute, hold on.
I'm not
He's
a
only 20."
psychologist. I'm not a psychologist.
Yep, but I'm
right?
saying a GM
So
might say
there
let
are
him grow.
aspects of character that matter for drafting.
Right.
If character was not an issue, he would be a top 3 pick.
Okay.
The top 3 picks would probably be Mariota
Yep.
and Winston and the defensive end tackle hybrid dude from USC whose name escapes me right now.
Oh, I'm trying to think. of his
Maybe
name.
Amari
Yeah.
Cooper.
Okay.
I'm not gonna-
And maybe Amari Cooper, the fourth guy. Amari Cooper's not the guy from USC.
No.
Aaron,
Leonard something.
I really appreciate you walking down the street and hanging out with us. We've only been doing this about 8 weeks, 10 weeks. I don't even know now. And we're looking to grow it, and I really appreciate you.
Well, maybe we'll do it again come
Please
playoff
come
time.
back and
Please
do it
do.
again.
Absolutely.
That would be
and
absolutely wonderful.
And if you want your own show, I know a really good producer.
All right.
God bless you.
All right,
my friend.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Enjoy it, and make
Appreciate
sure your
it.
meal goes on our tab, okay?
Aaron Schatz,
The whole place heard that. No.
the creator of Football Outsiders, has been our special guest as we try